Howling 2. Horrible or horribly underrated? Hello and welcome to another video. Yes, I'm back. Been a slight disruption this week because my dog ate my microphone. No, that's not a joke. Unfortunately. So I have a brand new microphone. I've tested it. It seems to be alright. So hopefully we can pick up where we left off. Now this time around I want to talk to you about Howling 2. My sister is a werewolf. Or is it your sister is a werewolf? One of the two. This was the 1985 sequel to the original 1981 The Howling by Gremlins director Joe Dante, which is widely regarded as a classic. That's not the same for any of the sequels, including this one. Now, I had only recently seen Howling 2 for the very first time. I picked it up on Blu-ray, as those of you who watched my horror Blu-ray pickup video will have noticed. All I've ever heard about Howling 2 is that Christopher Lee is in it and apologised for Joe Dante for being in it later on. Sybil Danning is in it and gets a kit off, and it's supposed to be hideously bad. One of the worst movies ever made or something like that. Of course, recently I've heard a couple of YouTubers, I think one was Cobweb's channel and one was Mid-Level Media, both say actually it's kind of fun, which intrigued me. And I know that they've done a big like 4K one. I've not got that one. I've got the previous Blu-ray release from somebody else. And I have to say, I really don't see the need to get anything else. It's an excellent Blu-ray. It looks absolutely beautiful. I also have to say, I really enjoyed Howling 2. Controversial. I'm not sure. I think I'd need to see both again a couple more times, but I might even prefer it to the first one. Oh dear, that's not going to go down well. Look, I have to be honest, I've never been a massive fan of The Howling, so I've never been particularly precious about it. Of the three Wolf movies that came out in 1981, I have to say I far prefer American Werewolf and Wolfen. I've always found Howling a little bit overrated. Don't quite get the adulation there as with some other things. So perhaps that made me a little bit more open-minded to going into Howling 2 in the first place, as well as just being plain curious. But, well, I mean, I have to say, I genuinely had a blast with Howling 2. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's a masterpiece or anything, you know, in the greatest werewolf movie ever made. But I found it a lot of fun. It has its flaws. I would say probably the weakest things about it, in all honesty, is the two young leads who are not very interesting or very good and kind of boring, and that sex scene in the middle between them that seems to come out of nowhere almost is probably the most unsexy thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Literally, the werewolf orgy is hotter than that. However, I will say that is made up for by Christopher Lee, because this isn't one of these cases of these movies, and I've seen a couple of these lately that kind of piss you off, where they pretend that Christopher Lee or Peter Cushing is in the movie, and then you get there and it's like one bloody scene, and it's like one scene, and then it's nobody's carrying the rest of the movie. No, Christopher Lee has a major role in this movie. He's in it from very early on. I think it's almost like the first scene he shows up, and he's in it basically all the way through to the climax. So, and he's great. Whatever his opinions of the movie, I mean, he never seemed to like anything he was in, especially including the Draculas half the time. But that didn't stop him from giving great performances, and he carries this movie. He's not the bad guy here. He's basically being Van Helsing there. He is basically being Peter Cushing's Van Helsing, but with werewolves instead of vampires. And he's great. He carries this freaking movie completely. But I have to say, I find it a lot of fun. There's loads of werewolf action. It's very well directed. It's some wonderfully. I mean, the cinematography. There's great spooky, gothic atmosphere, especially when they go over when they go to overseas, wherever it is, the foreign country. I can't remember where it is now. Is it Transylvania? I think it might be, or something like that. I don't know. But that helps it as well. It's got tremendous atmosphere. And there's tons of action. I mean, there's literally tons of action with the werewolves. I found this movie enormous fun. I'm sorry. This is the kind of thing I watch a fun horror movie for. Honestly, I don't know whether to get some of the other sequels now because everybody seems to hate them all. But if they're all like this, I'll probably like them too. But yeah, I have to say, I did not find Howling 2 horrible at all. I did find it horribly underrated. It's got a permanent place on my shelf. I found it enormous fun. Again, let down slightly by the two younger leads who are just so uninteresting. But Christopher Lee, tons of great atmosphere, very well directed, lots of werewolf action. I found Howling 2 great fun.